My gaming group thought I was ugly because of my username. The pick-me girl who bullied me couldn't handle seeing my actual face. I started playing online games 3 years ago when my job got stressful, and I needed something to decompress after long shifts. I found a guild in a popular multiplayer game and quickly became one of the top players in our group. I was good at strategy and coordination, and people wanted me on their teams for difficult raids. I contributed a lot to our success and earned respect for my skills even though nobody knew anything about me personally. That was intentional. My username was GoblinTrash42, and I never showed my face on camera or shared pictures in our group chat. I didn't use voice chat either because I didn't want the dynamic to change once people knew I was a woman. I had seen what happened to female gamers who revealed themselves. The attention shifted from their abilities to their appearance. The conversations got weird. The respect got conditional. I wanted to be valued for what I could do, not what I looked like. So I stayed anonymous and let people assume whatever they wanted. What they assumed was that I must be ugly. The username didn't help. GoblinTrash42 sounded like something a troll would pick. Combined with my refusal to show my face, people decided I was hiding because I had something to hide. They made jokes about it in group chat. They speculated about what I really looked like. They created an image of me that had nothing to do with reality. I didn't correct them because I didn't care what they thought about my appearance. I cared about the game. One person cared more than others about establishing what I supposedly looked like. Her username was Queen Pixie and her real name was Darlene. She was the only other woman in our main group who used voice chat and showed her face on camera. She wasn't bad looking, but she acted like she was the most beautiful creature any of these gamers had ever encountered. She constantly mentioned how rare it was for an attractive girl to be good at games. She talked about all the attention she got from guys who couldn't believe someone pretty would play with them. She positioned herself as the exception to every rule about female gamers. Darlene didn't like that I existed. She didn't like that someone with good skills refused to show their face. She especially didn't like that some of the guys in our group respected my gameplay more than they respected her looks. She couldn't compete with me on ability, so she competed on appearance instead. The problem was she needed me to be ugly for that competition to work, so she made sure everyone believed I was. Darlene made comments constantly about how I must be hiding for a reason. She said people who were confident in their looks didn't use usernames like Goblin Trash. She said my refusal to appear on camera was suspicious, and probably meant I was ashamed of something. She joked that I was probably a middle-aged man pretending to be a woman. The guys in our group picked up her framing and ran with it. They started calling me Goblin as a nickname. They made jokes about what I probably looked like based on nothing but assumptions. Darlene laughed the hardest at every joke and added her own. She was building consensus around an image of me that didn't exist. I let it happen because confronting it would have required revealing myself, and I wasn't ready for that. After 2 years of playing together, our guild decided to organize an in-person meetup. People had been talking about it for months, and finally someone took charge of logistics. We picked a city that was central for most members and rented a private room at a restaurant. About 15 people confirmed they would attend. Darlene was extremely excited. She talked about it constantly in group chat. She discussed what she would wear. She asked if anyone was nervous to meet her in person. She made sure everyone knew she would be even more impressive in real life than on camera. She also made comments about how interesting it would be to finally see Goblin Trash in person. I confirmed I would attend and said nothing else. The day of the meetup, I arrived 15 minutes early and chose a seat in the corner where I could watch people enter. I wore a simple dress that fit well and did my makeup the way I usually do for nice occasions. I look like myself, which is to say I look like someone who gets stopped on the street by modeling scouts. I'm not bragging. It's just a fact about my genetics that I had no control over. I've been called beautiful my entire life by strangers and people who know me. My appearance has opened doors and created problems in equal measure. It's part of why I valued anonymity in gaming. I wanted one space where my face didn't define my experience. Guild members started arriving and checking in with each other. They were looking for faces they recognized from camera. Darlene arrived in a tight dress with full makeup and immediately started commanding attention. She hugged the guys she recognized and posed for pictures and acted like the guest of honor. She scanned the room looking for me with obvious anticipation. She wanted to see the ugly girl she had been mocking for 2 years. She wanted confirmation that her assumptions were correct. One of the guild leaders finally approached me because I was sitting alone and asked if I was with another party. I told him my username. He stared at me for a solid 5 seconds without speaking. Then he called out to the group that Goblin Trash was here. Everyone turned to look. I smiled and waved. The reaction was immediate and gratifying. Hashtag. The silence stretched across the restaurant's private room like someone had hit pause on reality. Everyone stared at me with complete shock as they tried to match Goblin Trash 42 with the woman sitting in front of them. Some had their mouths slightly open. A few blinked rapidly like they were trying to clear their vision. Darlene's expression froze mid-smile, her eyes going wide as she processed that the ugly girl she spent 2 years mocking actually looked like she stepped out of a fashion magazine. Her smile stayed stuck, but her eyes showed pure panic. Several guild members immediately pulled out their phones to compare my face with their mental image. I could see them scrolling through old group chat messages where they made jokes about my appearance. Lyra approached cautiously and admitted she felt terrible about some comments she made. Her face flushed with embarrassment. She couldn't make eye contact. Darlene remained frozen near the entrance, still scanning the room like she was hoping to find the real Goblin Trash somewhere else. Mateo broke the tension by asking if I was actually the person who carried him through that impossible raid last month. When I confirmed it was me, he started laughing at himself for all the goblin jokes he made. He kept saying he felt like an idiot. Other guild members slowly approached to introduce themselves properly, their behavior noticeably different now that they could see my face. They stood up straighter and made more eye contact. During dinner, I noticed the social dynamics shifting rapidly. The guys who used to call me Goblin as a an insult, now used it as a friendly nickname. They asked about my job and strategies for different boss fights. They offered to buy me drinks. Darlene tried to maintain her position as the center of attention, but kept glancing at me with barely concealed anger. She told stories about modeling opportunities. She posed for pictures, but people's attention kept drifting back to me. Tucker pulled me aside and apologized for not shutting down the appearance jokes in group chat. He admitted he went along with assumptions he had no basis for making. He promised to be more aware going forward. When I returned to the table, I overheard Darlene whispering to Lyra about how I probably used filters or had work done. Lyra looked uncomfortable and changed the subject to upcoming raid schedules. Other guild members were actively avoiding Darlene's attempts to gossip. When she tried to pull someone into her conversation about my looks, he made an excuse about needing another drink. Mateo sat next to me and we talked strategy for upcoming content. He asked detailed questions about my approach to specific mechanics. He mentioned he always respected my calls during raids and never understood why people made such a big deal about me not showing my face. He said my raid leading was some of the best he'd experienced. For the first time in 2 years, I felt like I was being seen as a complete person, rather than a mystery or a joke. Darlene made one last attempt to reclaim attention by suggesting a group photo and insisting on positioning herself in the center. When I ended up near the middle of the group, her smile became visibly forced. The photo got posted to Discord within minutes, and she was the only one not genuinely smiling. After the meetup, our group chat exploded. Several members privately messaged me with apologies. Lyra sent a long message acknowledging specific comments she made and asking if we could start fresh. I appreciated the genuine remorse. Darlene posted about what a fun evening it was, carefully avoiding any mention of me or the reveal. Someone asked directly what she thought of finally meeting me. After a long pause where the typing indicator appeared and disappeared several times, she responded with a generic comment about it being nice to meet everyone. The awkwardness of her non-response became its own statement. Over the next few days, Darlene's activity in our guild Discord dropped from constant to minimal. She stopped posting screenshots. She stopped sharing memes. She stopped making those comments about being the rare attractive girl who could actually play games well. The comparison she built her entire gaming identity around didn't work anymore. I existed as proof that beautiful women could play at high levels without making their appearance the main topic of conversation. Our next raid night arrived and I made a decision that felt both scary and necessary. I enabled voice chat for the first time in 2 years. When I said I was ready, the chat went completely silent. Then Mateo said my voice sounded exactly like he imagined, which made everyone laugh and broke the tension. My callouts during the raid were as sharp as they'd always been in text. Hearing my actual voice seemed to complete the picture for guild members still processing the reveal. Darlene joined voice chat, but stayed muted for most of the raid. She missed several mechanics she usually handled without problems. She stood in fire and died early. Her performance reflected her mental state. Lyra messaged me asking if I wanted to grab coffee. We met at a cafe and she opened up about how Darlene actively encouraged all the jokes about my appearance over the past 2 years. She admitted she went along with it because Darlene made it seem like harmless fun. Seeing my actual face made her realize how cruel those assumptions were. I appreciated her honesty more than empty apologies. We made plans to hang out again. The guild's social dynamics continued shifting. Some members were genuinely apologetic and wanted to move forward. Others got quiet and withdrew, embarrassed but unable to address it. Darlene fell into a third category. She was angry that her assumptions were wrong. She acted like I deceived everyone by not correcting their baseless theories. Her resentment became obvious in passive-aggressive ways, leaving reactions on everyone's messages except mine, ignoring anything I posted, stopping voice chat when I was online. Mateo messaged me about forming a smaller group for harder content. He was selecting people based purely on skill and attitude. I noticed Darlene wasn't on the roster. Her exclusion from elite content would hit harder than any direct confrontation could. 3 weeks after the meetup, Darlene posted a long message about taking a break from the game. She cited personal reasons and said she needed to step away for a while. Everyone knew the real reason. Her social positioning completely collapsed, and she couldn't handle being in a space where she wasn't the center of attention anymore. I sent a brief response saying I hoped she found what she was looking for. I meant it sincerely. Holding on to anger seemed pointless when she was already dealing with natural consequences. With Darlene gone, the guild atmosphere became noticeably different. The tension disappeared. People relaxed in voice chat. Raid nights focused on actual gameplay instead of social hierarchy. I started streaming my gameplay about a month later. The decision felt right. Hiding served its purpose for 2 years, but I was ready to exist fully in gaming spaces now. My viewer count grew steadily. People appreciated the combination of high-level play and genuine personality. Several viewers left comments saying they were tired of streamers who used appearance as their main appeal. Women flooded the chat sharing similar stories about being judged on looks before skills. One woman said she finally turned on her camera during raids after watching my streams. She said knowing someone else navigated these dynamics successfully made her feel less alone. Looking back, the meetup reveal satisfied me, not because it proved I was beautiful. It satisfied me because it exposed how cruel and baseless appearance assumptions are in gaming culture. I maintained anonymity long enough to build genuine respect for my abilities. I showed my face eventually because hiding forever would have given those assumptions too much power. My gaming life feels complete now. People value my skills while I exist as my full self. That was always the goal.